How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC. It is a beautiful Sunday morning here in New Hampshire. A little bit chilly, but we have a really fun introduction to do on this beautiful fixed blade knife. This is the Steadfast EDC model from Steve Callari over at Callari Custom Knives. You guys probably know him as Super Steel Steve. He had a YouTube channel where he did a lot of sharpening and testing and a lot of shit talking. So you either love him or you hate him, but he's an Italian brother of mine. As interesting as he can be and in your face, I really respect that. So Steve is a very good friend of mine, and he made me one of his Steadfast models, and I want to show you guys what it looks like and give a little bit of an introduction and just talk about it, because this is another knife that we are testing this month for November. It's in Magna Cut. It seems very fun. And I do have a whole bunch of other knives here that I want to bring in and talk about. So this is going to probably be a lengthy video. You definitely want some coffee and maybe a snack, okay? So I contacted Steve in May, and I asked him if he could make me a 3V version of his Steadfast EDC model. I wanted 3V because it's one of my favorite steels. I really like the edge retention and toughness of 3V, but when he started to look into making it, he offered to make it in Magna Cut for me with no additional cost, you know, because we're friends and stuff, and he was the one that offered up doing it in Magna Cut, and I was like, hey, I'll take it, you know, because Magna Cut, in my opinion, is very, very similar to 3V. It's just stainless. So I was like, why not? I'd love to do more testing with Magna Cut. So basically, he asked me, you know, a couple questions. He asked what I want to do with this. I'm not like one of those slicey, dicey cardboard cutter people. I use my knives more as utility knives. My job, I'm able to use knives quite often, not as much as I did in like blue collar work, but I still use them. And then especially in my personal life, I just use my knives as more utility blades. I'm not looking for like the thinnest knife ever in the most exotic steel. I need something that's a little bit more rugged and durable, and that I can kind of beat on without worrying about it. I do a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of woodwork, you know, building fires and hiking, and, you know, I have 4 dogs, lots of raw food processing for them. So just really looking for an all-around utility knife that I don't have to worry about, I guess. And he said that he would make the tip a little bit thicker than he normally does so that I can do some light prying with it. And he also said that he would leave it behind the edge a little thicker than usual. So I believe typically on his Steadfast model, he does 5 thou behind the edge. This is 11 or 12. So it's not like you're cutting with a sharpened pry bar, but it's definitely not the thinnest and sliciest thing in the world where I have to worry about it. But this is, you know, the outcome. I told him to do whatever he wanted with the scales and all of that. Like, I had no idea what he was going to do, and I just told him to be creative and kind of, as an artist, have fun with it. So we do have natural vintage micarta. Go figure he picked that, which is really funny because, like I said, I didn't tell him to, but you guys know I love vintage micarta, and that is what he picked. We have some really beautiful white pins, and then Tiffany blue liners with, again, that vintage micarta. And this is the model. So it's in Magna Cut 63 for an HRC, and this is his EDC model. So I just want to go over some first impressions of it. I have been using it, and then I'm going to bring in some other knives for comparison and just to continue the conversation about these in general. So the ergonomics of this knife are probably some of the best I've ever handled in my life. And Steve, you know, I told him that, and he was like, I put a lot of time into the ergonomics of the knife because that is equally as important as, you know, the geometry, the heat treat, what type of steel you use, all that, right? Because you can have the best steel in the world at the best geometry and best heat treat, but if the handle isn't comfortable, you're not going to want to actually use the knife, right? And for me, I like to use my knives. I use them as tools, and I need a knife every day of my life. So ergonomics are really important for me. If it's not comfortable, I'm not going to use it. He put a lot of time into this design. We have a little bit of a finger choil here, but it's not too pronounced, which I like because he has meat hands, like fucking meat paws. I have small hands compared to men, but pretty large hands for a girl, and I believe that this handle that he did would genuinely fit any size hand, whether you have a small hand or a large hand. So although he has very large hands, this handle fits perfectly for me. I definitely have some real estate hanging off in the back, but that's fine. It's not oversized at all. Very, very comfortable in hand. I mean, this is a knife where I could do some woodwork and some whittling for a decent amount of time, and it's not going to fatigue my hand at all, and there are no hot spots. Like I said, I've been using this. There's just a little bit of residue on there. It's Magna Cut, so you're not going to see like a whole bunch of crazy usage on this yet. But it's very comfortable. It glides right through material. It's not too thick at all. He did chamfer the spine, which is really nice. A nice little touch. We have a sharpening choil there. Again, really nice. Steve is huge into sharpening, so no surprise there with the choil to make it easy to sharpen. It's very simplistic but beautifully built, and I feel that the handle thickness is perfect as well. Any thicker would have been way too chunky, and any thinner, I think it would have been uncomfortable, because I don't like my fingers like being completely curled in on a knife. I like them maybe to touch my palm, but I don't want it just being crushed. That's not comfortable for me. It's absolutely stunning. The edge that he sent, the bevels are perfectly even, and we have a lot of really nice belly there, and he sent it with a very bitey, toothy working edge. It is not glossed, it is not mirror polished at all, and it's very crunchy, which I like. I'm not the biggest fan of mirror finishes. I prefer a working edge, and that's exactly what this has. I should have brought some paper out to show you guys. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. But really good belly, absolutely beautiful knife. I'm not sure the overall length on it. Probably another thing I should have measured, but I'll bring in a TRM Neutron 2 for size reference, because a lot of people know the size of that. So it's, you know, maybe 2 inches longer than a Neutron 2, and the Neutron 2 is a fairly small knife. So this really is an EDC sized knife. I'm obsessed with it already. I'm really excited to keep using it this month. One thing to note, it did not come with a sheath. I don't believe any of his knives come with a sheath. He predominantly makes chef's knives, so that makes sense. It did come in a really beautiful zipper pouch that was cushioned, that was made in the USA as well. Obviously, this is all made in the USA. Steve is very passionate about USA materials and production and stuff, so this came in a pouch that was made in the USA as well, in like Minnesota maybe or something. It had a sticker on it, and the little paper cover for this was from Pop's Knives. It did not come with a sheath though. No sheath, and I don't think he does that, so just be mindful of that. When you order one of his knives, you're gonna have to provide a sheath for yourself. I don't think that's something he's doing. And I didn't really know that until it got here, and then I was like, uh-oh, how am I going to carry this thing? I have nothing to put it in. But luckily, I had a JRE Industries sheath from my mini snake eater, and this fits perfectly in it. So the JRE Industries sheaths, you can get them in different sizes and stuff. You can get them off of their website, and it says like what size knife they'll fit. They have all different sizes, but luckily my mini snake eater one fits it perfectly, so I had one on deck that I could use. But if you're interested, just remember you have to figure out your carry option on your own, okay? One other thing to note is that he sent me a video of this before he mailed it out, and he gave me all the specs, like, you know, that it was 63 for an HRC, it's Magna Cut obviously, it's 11 or 12 thou behind the edge, all of the handle materials and stuff, but there is no certification or documentation of any of that when the knife arrives, at least for me. Like it was just the pouch with the paper slip on it so that you don't cut yourself. There was no paper stating anything about the knife, no nothing. So unless he tells you, I guess you wouldn't really know. It might be nice for him to maybe write something up and put it in there that, you know, the heat treat and the materials and all that good stuff, just in case maybe you want to resell it later on. People know literally what it is, because there's no stamp, right? Like there's nowhere anywhere on here that says Magna Cut, nothing. So you wouldn't know. That's one little thing that I could suggest to him moving forward if he's going to do this professionally. But other than that, I can't believe the quality of this. He just started making knives too. He's been in the knife game forever, but in terms of making them himself, he just started. So this is a beautiful, flawless execution of a knife coming from someone who just started. I mean, everything is so even, and he's doing this all on his own, right? Like he's hand doing all of this with tools, obviously, but the fit and finish is just absolutely stunning. This is very much a custom knife with custom build quality. Absolutely gorgeous. There's nothing that I can ding on this thing in terms of quality, fit and finish, all that stuff. I believe these start at $280 if I am correct. And you can contact him on Instagram or whatever and, you know, get a quote for a knife, but very, very cool. I'm going to bring in a few other knives to talk about real quick as well, just so you guys can see what we'll be comparing to this throughout the month. I did ask Steve if I can baton with this knife, and he said that he'd like to try it on his first and get back to me about that. I didn't want to just start blowing through wood with this thing and maybe damage it or something and then have to go to him and be like, oops, you know, because that's not his responsibility if that's not something he suggests to do with his knives. It is something that I do with my knives. I know a lot of people don't believe in that, but I like batoning with knives. I think it's a great test. And also when I'm out hiking and stuff, like I'm not always going to carry an axe or a hatchet or anything. Sometimes it's just nice to have a one and done tool that you can use. So we're waiting on the response as to if we have permission to baton with the knife. However, I did a lot of batoning the other day at a fire with some knives that I already had, and I thought it would be great reference. So this is a BGM Knives full-size spade in 52-100 steel. That is a tool steel. The edge retention is not the best on it. However, the toughness is out of this world. And as I stated, it's a tool steel, so it will patina. You can see that this is covered in the teeners. It has surely gone to Teener Town with Yo Mom, and there's quite a bit of rust. That is from my doing, okay? That's not John's fault. Like, I just beat the shit out of my stuff a lot of the times, and it's covered in rust. Look at the teeners on that though, man. Gorgeous. Like, look at that pattern from the heat treat. Whoo! These were satin bevels right here. Teener Town Central. Did a lot of batoning with this the other day. It can cut through cardboard and thick paper with ease. Not to say it's sharp though. It's not hair popping sharp anymore. Like, I can run my fingers on the edge and not cut myself. You can hear it still has some bite, but not as much as it did. What's impressive is the toughness. I really was beating on this thing. It was going through some very hard wood with knots, and I really just beat the pulp out of this thing, and there's not a single dent, roll, nothing on this. Some people may argue that batoning through hard, seasoned wood will not affect the edge. I have seen it affect an edge in terms of sharpness and damage and stuff. So for me, I think it's a reasonable test if you're going to use your knives outside. Some people think it's stupid. That's fine. But I was very impressed with the edge that this held through that, and especially the toughness. So just for some reference, we do have the spade that we've been testing as well. to do some comparisons with. I know John is pretty open to people beating the crap out of their knives. I also have a very good relationship with John, so I feel that if I did anything reasonable with one of his knives and it failed, he would take care of me. So there's some info on a 52-100 tool steel spade. I believe this is at 60 to 61 for an HRC. Another knife that I did some batoning with, which will probably blow your mind, is a Kyle Noseworthy BakeApple. This is an 01 tool steel, and this is a really small little EDC slash bushcraft knife that I tested a couple months ago. Kyle sent this to me for testing. I did pay for it, but I got a discount. I did pay full price for this as well. And I did some batoning and some fire processing or wood processing for a fire with this, making some kindling, and another blade that did absolutely phenomenal. Zero edge damage at all. Kyle does a really good job on his heat treat. He typically only works with 01 tool steel to make his own custom knives, but he chooses that because it is so tough and very easy to bring back, and a lot of his knives are geared toward hunters and people that play with their knives outside and kind of beat on them. So here's another one, you know, definitely pretty thick, and there's not a lot of room here for this thickness behind the edge to thin out, so it's pretty thick behind the edge, but it did incredibly well with the wood processing, absolutely zero damage, and still fairly sharp. So we'll be bringing in some, you know, other knives for reference in terms of toughness with this whole testing. And then just to talk about kind of, you know, Magna Cut in general, I have a decent amount of experience with it, I would say. I had the Hogue Deca first run of Magna Cut that was softer, and I tested that. That is the same Deca that I sent to Knives Knives. He tested, he sharpened, he made a whole video on it. I ended up gifting that to Richter Knives, Michael over at Richter Knives, so now he has it, but I did a good amount of testing with that. Then I had the first run of Magna Cut from John over at BGM Knives. When it first came out, he was one of the first makers to have it. He was running it, I want to say like 61-ish, 61, 62. Didn't have the best time with that. I felt it was a little soft, so I gifted that to Bumblebee EDC after I tested it, and Jeremy has it. And then John made me another Magna Cut knife. This one clocked in at 62.5 to 63. This is a completely different model. This is a mini spade, full flat grounded Magna Cut. I asked him to go about as thin as he could, and this is a knife where at the beginning I again was not impressed. However, I realized that the edge was convex, and once I put my own edge on it and took away the convex from the Tormac, this did phenomenal. Now, this is one of my best performing knives out of my entire collection. Full flat ground, 62 to 63, 62.5 to 63. Magna Cut is out of this world. I have batoned with this as well. Zero edge damage. This is one of my sharpest, sliciest, toughest knives that I own. John is crushing it with the Magna Cut now. He's really got a good heat treat going, a good hardness that he clocks them in at. This is a fantastic little knife, so we'll be bringing this in for reference as well because it is Magna Cut. And I can highly suggest John's work with Magna Cut, especially if you get full flat ground. This has a ton of room to thin out. This is paper thin behind the edge. It slices like crazy, but it's also insanely tough, and the edge retention is just out of this world. So that's one that we will be, you know, bringing in to do some talking about. And one of the biggest questions I get is like, okay, what would you choose? 20 CV, crew wear, or Magna Cut? Because they're all very similar in a lot of their characteristics. So I have some crew wear here. I want to say this is 60 to 61 or 61 to 62. This is a double hollow ground mini spade from John at BGM Knives and crew wear. And I'm going to be bringing this in, and then my 20 CV Neutron 2 from 3 Rivers Manufacturing. That's a tongue twister. TRM, this is 20 CV. So because people ask so often about the differences between MAGNACUT, 20 CV, and Crewware, we have these as well to bring in. That way we can really do some side-by-side testing, figure out which one may work best for you, because they're all fantastic. They're pretty similar in most cases, but we will figure out the differences and kind of chat about it throughout the month. So those are also some that we have to bring into use. And I realize they all have different blade stock thicknesses, therefore different geometries. I understand that. This is not the Discovery Channel. This is not a science channel. We literally just use knives like tools without a crap load of science behind it. I am not Laren Thomas. That's his name, right? Dr. Laren Thomas. Yeah, fucking Laren. Fucking Laren! I'm not Laren. I'm not Michael Christie. I'm not Steve. You know, I'm not Big Brown Bear, Triple B, whatever the fuck Sean's name is. I'm just not a scientist. I'm just using the knives and telling you how they work. So I'm not going to be doing all the crazy caliper stuff with thickness behind the edge on these while we're testing. I'm literally just going to tell you how it goes with each steel, and you can do what you want with that information that may not mean anything to most people. But yeah, Crewware double hollow ground on this one. So we will bring this in for some side-by-side testing, and then the 20 CV from TRM, which I have had fantastic experience with. They do a really good job on their 20 CV. I believe they send it off to Pete's to get heat treated, something like that. They also are doing Magna Cut now. They have Magna Cut nerds, and they're bringing Magna Cut into their whole game. So maybe I can get my hands on that. But just a whole bunch of stuff to kind of play with for the month and to reference, and to hopefully give you guys some beginning information on where, you know, what direction you want to take with the steel that you want on your next knife, I guess. I hope that is enough to integrate into the testing for this month. I think this will be really fun. I'm very curious to see how Steve's Magna Cut does in comparison to John's, because they're both custom makers. I'm also very curious to see specifically how Magna Cut does connected to Crewware, because from my experience with them, I feel that Crewware has more upfront, bitey toothiness to the edge for a longer period of time, and MAGNACUT glasses out faster, but MAGNACUT is very easy to sharpen and to bring back to hair popping sharp, and I believe that the toughness is very close on both of those. So really curious to see side by side how everything does together. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that maybe you go use your shit today, but if not, I still love you. We're all in this family together, are we not? It doesn't matter. But go use your shit today, maybe. Learn how to sharpen your knives if you wish. And I will see you at your mom's house on Wednesday. She's very excited. She's making me meatballs because I'm Italian. I will see you guys so soon. Take care. I love you all so much.